Interesting questions and important answers and opportunity. This is Thoughtful Beliefs.
Why is the universe so vast and we are just a speck if we're so special? This image was taken from the Voyager 1 space probe, and that tiny pale blue dot, that's Earth. And Earth is with other planets orbiting a star, the Sun. The Sun is just one of about 250 billion other stars orbiting in our Milky Way galaxy. And if you go out on a nice starry night and you hold up your little finger up towards space, and in that little space where your fingernail is, if you had a good enough telescope where you could just enlarge that, you'd then see this image. And those aren't stars, those are all other galaxies, each with around 200 billion other stars. And there's hundreds of billions of other galaxies. This big universe leads to that bigger question. If the universe is so vast, why would we think that we're special? We covered in other videos that if we exist, either this universe had a beginning or it didn't. We showed that the evidence shows that the universe had a beginning. If it had a beginning, either it has a purposeful, intelligent cause, meaning we will have a purpose, or it doesn't, and it was just pure nature and chance. Science and logic have provided amazing discoveries we can now apply to this question. So why is the universe so vast? Answer: because it had to be exactly that vast. As noted in the beginning evidence video, the universe started off immensely dense, small, and hot, and then started expanding and cooling from there, following natural laws. Now, in the first 3 or 4 minutes, as it was expanding, the universe itself actually went through temperature range in the core of our sun. And so at first you only have this lightest elements like hydrogen. And when you go through this temperature, this is where hydrogen starts getting slammed in with nuclear fusion together to start producing helium. Now, in those first 3 to 4 minutes, you have gravity, which is trying to crush everything back together, and you have an expansion force trying to spread everything apart. If we didn't have the exact balance we needed then as it went through that temperature and started slamming hydrogen together to make helium to give us the materials we're going to need to make everything else in the universe, scientists have found that if during that time, in those first 3 to 4 minutes, there was just a little bit more mass, or mass density, that's amount of mass per volume, and when that universe was its size that it was, if you had just a little bit more mass, then too much hydrogen would have got slammed together, and we would have ended up with only the elements iron or heavier. We'd have a heavy metal universe only. The Metallica fans would be happy, but they wouldn't exist because no life would exist. If we had a little bit less mass, then not enough hydrogen would have gotten slammed together, and we just end up with hydrogen and some helium. We'd end up with a hot air balloon universe. Again, no life. So we had the exact mass that we needed to, and it gets even crazier the more you go back closer to the beginning. At that very beginning, within the first moments after the universe came into existence, you have gravity, just amazing, unfathomable gravity acting, and an expansion force. Now, how well did they have to balance? If by chance the cause of the universe happened to flip a dime's worth more mass into the universe, if the universe had, actually, when you do the calculation, it's a little bit less than a dime's, more mass when the universe began, just by chance, then the universe, gravity would have taken over, and the universe would have stopped expansion and crushed together into a bunch of super black holes. No life. If the universe had just a little bit less mass than it has, so out of all the mass of the entire universe, if there was less than a dime's less mass, then the universe would have spread out too fast because of expansion would have been too much at the time, and we wouldn't have had, again, any elements that we need to make life. It would just be a gas universe and no life. When discovering this, some argued, well, maybe this inflationary period right at that beginning of the universe could have taken over and just kind of taken care of this balance between gravity and expansion. No, that's possible. But here's the trend of what we see. Once we started finding these fine-tuned features where the universe was just right, they don't go away. What we see over time is All right, if inflation can explain that, great. But then when we started studying this expansion more, we found even crazier odds that the universe would just happen to be balancing exactly where it needs to. When we look at that space energy density, or what they call dark matter, or the cosmological constant, it's even more precisely tuned than the dimes example that I gave. These fine-tuned features can be found on the scale of the universe itself, down to galaxies and stars and planets, even to atoms. Stephen Hawking notes some of these. The remarkable fact is, the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. Let's apply the science that's been discovered to a logical argument. Premise 1. The scientifically accepted fine-tuning of the universe is either due to physical necessity, chance, or purposeful design. Those are the only options. Premise 2. The fine-tuning is not the result of necessity or chance. Conclusion: the fine-tuning of the universe is due to purposeful design. Now, you might be looking at premise 2. What's physical necessity and chance? Physical necessity is the idea that all these constants, quantities, initial conditions, all these things in the universe that we're finding that has to be exactly just right, they just had to be that way by nature. But science doesn't accept that, because we look at what different values could be all the time. What if you change the force of gravity a little bit, or the speed of light a little bit? So science doesn't buy the idea that it's physical necessity. But if it's not physical necessity, does chance have a chance? Well, as soon as you invoke the idea of chance, you set yourself to be looked at mathematically. If someone won the Mega Millions lottery, okay, it happens. But what if someone won the Mega Millions lottery? Then they were greedy. The next time it got up to a really high value, they again bought one ticket and they won again. And then they wanted more. So the next time it got up to a high value, they bought one ticket and won again. Let's say they did this 6 times in a row. What are you thinking? How lucky? Or are you thinking that something is going on? Some intelligent agent must be acting. If you are betting against an intelligent agent being behind the creation of the universe, then you may be basing your life and possibly eternity on a very bad bet. Because the odds of winning the lottery 6 straight times in a row are much better than trying to get even the balance between the gravity and expansion right. And that's just one of the fine-tuned features, not even counting so many of the other ones that we can talk about. What are the scientists saying? So Freeman Dyson: the more I examine the universe and the details of its architecture, the more evidence I find that the universe in some sense must have known we were coming. Paul Davies has moved from promoting atheism to recognizing that the laws of physics seem themselves to be the product of exceedingly ingenious design. He states, "There is for me powerful evidence that there is something going on behind it all. It seems as though somebody has fine-tuned nature's numbers to make the universe. The impression of design is overwhelming." Sir Frederick Hoyle, in an Engineering and Science magazine, said, "A common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as with chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. The numbers one calculates from the facts seem to me so overwhelming as to put this conclusion almost beyond question." And from the currently most well-known mathematician and scientist of our time, Stephen Hawking, "Our universe and its laws appear to have a design that is both tailor-made to support us, and if we're to exist, leaves little room for alteration." And then in the Apostle Paul in Romans states, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse." Now, the quote I gave from Stephen Hawking needs to be put in the context of what else he wrote with it, as is true with any quote. And what Stephen Hawking said, he didn't just say, "So this points directly to a creator God." What he said was, "This looks like it's pointing to a creator God, but there's another option. There's a multiverse." And other scientists have echoed this. What they're saying is this: we're left with 2 options here. Either there is a purposeful creator, or you have to believe in the multiverse. And not just any multiverse, an infinite type multiverse, which makes for awesome, awesome movies, but is it reality? If you want more information on the multiverse and this issue, jump on over to my website, www.thoughtfulbeliefs.org.